In this tutorial, we're going to discuss using action constraints to control multiple bones with a single controller. So for our example today, we're going to create a fist control that will open and close the fist here. So to start off with, I'm going to tab into edit mode on my rig, and I'm going to duplicate these two IK controllers that I have. So just Shift D, and I'm going to bring this kind of down here and just sort of aim it away from the hand so that it looks like it's in a pretty good spot to sort of control the hand from. And I'm going to rename both of these, keeping my naming schema intact so that they continue to mirror each other. I'm going to call this control fist underscore L, and I'll call this one control fist underscore R. Just kind of look at those and make sure that they look about the same. Okay, and from here, basically what I need to do is I need to start animating what I want this hand to do. So I want this hand, I'm going to tab back into pose mode, I want this hand to open and close into a fist whenever I scale this bone. So to start off with, let's go to our animation workspace, and I'm getting a flicker that seems to come with an NVIDIA card, so if I change this background from theme to world, that flicker goes away. It's probably not coming through in the video, but that flicker gets really annoying. I don't know why that's happening on newer versions of Blender. Alright, so here I have my dope sheet open, and I'm going to put my controller on frame 0. And I'm going to go through and just kind of start animating the different bones that are going to be part of this fist opening and closing action. And instead of just a dope sheet, I'm going to make this an action editor so that I can actually start an action. I don't have to click new because I don't have an action open at the moment, but when I start animating, it will automatically create a new action because there are no actions in this file currently. If there were actions, I would create a new one at this time. And I'm going to turn on auto key so that I don't have to worry about remembering to actually insert my keyframes. So to start off with, I'm going to animate all of these bones within the fist closing action, not just the finger bones but also the carpals up there in the palm. So I've got all those, and I'm going to tap I and insert a location and rotation and scale keyframe for all of those, and then from here I'm going to advance to frame 20. So frame 0 is my open position, frame 20 is going to be my closed position, and I'm just going to start rotating these into place. Now I'm going to, you'll notice I have all my bone rolls. Let's go into an orthographic view here. I have all my bone rolls so that the fingers should bend around the X axis. And because I have that kind of figured out, I'm going to tap R to rotate and then tap X twice, RXX, and it will only rotate around that axis. And you'll want to probably hold your own fist up in front of you to kind of see, like most people, the index finger doesn't go at a perfect 90 degrees. So you'll kind of need to figure out what a fist looks like. Now this hand hasn't really been weight painted, really. It's still just kind of going with those automatic weights. So there's some weirdness here, and I'm going to just kind of adjust. That's not really what we're trying to show here, so I'm going to just kind of keep going with it, and I'm going to do some scaling here to kind of make this thing fit together a little better. So we'll time lapse this out so that you don't have to sit through the entire making of the fist. Alright, so for argument's sake and the sake of speed, let's say that I'm happy with that fist closure. And because I had auto key on, all of these bones are keyframed here. All of the bones in the hand, and they're all keyframed at frame 20. So I now have this action here called armature action. I need to give that a more descriptive name. I'm going to call this fist_L, and I'm going to give it a fake user just in case. That makes it so it doesn't get deleted and cleared out when I close Blender. And then from here I can turn off auto key, which is important, and I can just put the thing away. Just hit X on it, and it hasn't been deleted. It's still here. It has a little F for a fake user, and it's called fist_L. Okay, so now it's time for us to go and constrain our bones. So let's go. Actually, I'm going to load that up one more time and go back to frame 0. You can see frame 0, frame 20. We kind of have our fist closing action there. Oh, and actually here's one other issue that that we need to deal with. So you'll notice that when the fingers and the thumb start closing at the same rate, they clip through each other, the thumb and the index finger. And in reality, when you make your fist, you close your four fingers first, and then you close your thumb around them. You kind of grip your thumb around them. So the thumb needs to be a little bit delayed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keyframe the thumb at a more open position. I'm going to come back here to frame 7, select these three bones and just keyframe them, location, rotation, and scale. And then I'm going to take those keyframes and I'm just going to advance them further and basically say, okay, instead of getting to this position by frame 7, you're not going to get here until let's say frame 17. So basically a little movement there, and then the thumb kind of comes in there at the very end. And we're still clipping a little. If I want, I guess I can put a kind of a mid keyframe in there. It looks like about frame 19, or I could just kind of change the final position of the thumb. In this instance, I'm just going to put in another keyframe. So frame 19. Oh, and I didn't have auto key on. So let's turn on auto key. I'll just kind of move that thumb out of there a little bit. Okay, so the thumb comes in, no longer really clipping. Great, so we've got frame 0 is perfectly open, frame 20 is our closed fist. So let's put that action constraint away, or action away, and we'll turn off auto key. Then we're going to just come back to a default layout here and go into pose mode. Alright, so now what we need to do is instruct Blender to watch for a scaling operation on this bone here and to play through that action according to the amount of scaling that's happening. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put a constraint on one of these bones. So let's go over here. We're in pose mode, so we have this option of a bone constraints menu, and we're going to come here and put an action constraint on this. And the target's going to be our armature. The bone that we're going to target is going to be that control fist L. And from here, our target, basically this is where it looks for what do you want to watch for happening on this control fist bone. And it's not going to be a location. We're going to watch for a scaling operation. And it probably doesn't really matter what axis we're scaling on. In this instance, we'll just scale the whole thing. So we'll watch for Y in local space. And the minimum range, now this is kind of an interesting thing. Basically, what we're saying here is the unchanged state of, or the unactivated state of this action is going to be this amount of scaling. So we're going to put 1 in there for our range minimum, because when this is at a scale of 1.0, it means we haven't scaled it at all. So nothing, no action, no scaling action on this bone will result in no movement or no advancement in the hand fist animation. The max, I'm going to say let's scale down to 0.8. So basically, by the time we get this thing scaled down to 80%, this fist will be closed. So now we can choose the action. There's our action that we made. And the frame start is 0, and the frame end, of course, is 20, because that's how many frames we gave it. So now, if you watch this, you'll see that there is a little movement in there when we scale that. So we need this exact same constraint on all of these bones. And that could get a little bit tedious, except that there's a handy little add-on here in Blender called Copy Attributes menu. So I'm going to check that, and from here what we can do is just go through and select all of these bones. Looks like we've got them all, and then lastly we select our bone that has the constraint on it. So it's the active bone, and you can see its name is written up here. We'll hit Control C, and that actually, now that we have that add-on enabled, that gives us a menu, and one of the menu items is Copy Bone Constraints. So we'll copy those same bone constraints with all the settings into that same bone, and you can see we're actually we left our hand in the starting position. So let's go back to animation. We'll load up our fist action, and we're going to go back to frame 0 before we could put it away. Okay, so that we haven't actually moved any of those. Now, if we select our fist bone here, when we scale it, we get our hand animation happening, which is exactly what we wanted. Now, it's pretty easy to actually copy these to the other side as well. So what we can do here is we can copy our poses. Let's go back to our animation, and we're going to load up our fist. Actually, sorry, let's put this away. Let's start a new action over here on the right hand. We'll call this fist _ R. We're going to have to be a little careful not to accidentally animate one hand inside the other. So we will select all these bones, make sure none of the other hand are selected. They're not. We're going to keyframe the starting position just like we did. We're in fist R now. Go over to frame 20, and let's give this a fake user and put it away. Let's open up fist L, and we'll select all of these bones here. We'll hit Control C, and this time we're just going to copy the pose. And now we'll put this action away. We'll load up our fist R action again and go to frame 20, and we are going to paste pose X flipped, which is either under the pose menu, paste pose flipped, but you can also see the shortcut is Shift Control V. So we'll just do that. Shift Control V. Oops, and I forgot to do something. I need to turn on auto key. Shift Control V. And it looks like, for whatever reason, I didn't get the whole thumb pose. Let's have a look. And I'm betting, actually, since that looked like it should have gone, I'm betting I have a naming problem here. Palm.thumb.r, palm.thumb.l, finger.thumb.001_L, palm.thumb, there we go, finger.thumb.001_R. So I've got to have these names symmetrical, and I had it a little messed up there, so that's a good lesson. Finger.thumb.002_R. Okay, and Control Shift V, and you can see that those popped in now. And that still looks wrong to me, so I'm going to look at it one more time. Oh, and I wonder if our bone rolls are wrong, since those probably didn't get rolled symmetrically originally. So let's go back. Actually, let's put these both to their open positions. and go back to our layout, tab into edit mode now that we have our names symmetrical, and we will just very briefly kind of play with our bone rolls, and we'll just give them a little wiggle here. To kind of sync them up now that the okay, and those values look right now. So now let's go back to animation. Fist L looks right. Fist R, that looks better. Okay, so it was those bone rolls that if you mess up those symmetry options, that symmetrical naming, it can have a ripple effect there. So that's what was happening there. But now we've got frame 0 and frame 20 are the same. So let's copy those other couple of frames here. We've got some different frames on the thumb. We've got a different frame 17. Let's copy that first. So copy that pose. Go back to Fist R. Control Shift V. And you can see that the auto key took care of putting the keyframes in. And then we'll go to frame 19, where we know Fist L has a couple of keyframes. Copy that pose. And Control Shift V, paste X flipped. Okay, so now everything over here, we have the same kind of mirrored pose from 0 to 20. Okay, so in order to take care of this side, what we're going to do now is go back to our layout, go back to our pose mode, and we are going to just copy 2 bones, copy the constraint over from one bone, Control C, and copy the bone constraints. So now we have a bone constraint on this one, but it's targeting the left fist control, so we need to change that around just a little. So let's look for Control Fist R. That's this bone. Y scale and local space is still fine, but the action is going to be Fist R. And we can see that that's now working. So from here, we can just copy the rest of the bone, or select the rest of the bones, make our constrained bone active, hit Control C, and copy those bone constraints. And now this one has a fist controller as well. And there's one last thing I'm going to show you, as long as we've kind of gone over time a little bit on this anyway. But let's reset that. Reset Fist L. There we go. As long as we've gone over a little bit anyway, we'll go over just a bit more, and I'm going to show you how to create a widget for these bones. So a widget is just kind of a user interface element that takes the place visually of the standard look of a bone, so that we can tell that it's a control. So widget, we're just going to, I'm going to go into object mode here and make a new object. It's just going to be a mesh object, and it's just going to be a circle. And I'm going to lower the resolution of that circle a little bit. Let's say 12 vertices. Tab into edit mode and scale these in X. I'm just kind of going to make a little peanut shape here. Scale in X. That's probably good. And then I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier to it. Going to make it look a little nicer. Maybe bring those in a little more. scale the whole thing in X just a little. That's good. Alright, so we will call this widget underscore fist. And from here, I just go back and I pop into pose mode and select my bone there. Go to my bone menu and click on viewport display, and you can see it's got a space here for a custom object. So I'm going to select that widget, and you can see that pops into place now, and I have the opportunity to kind of rotate that into place and scale it if I'm not super happy with its placement. But now I have a control bone there, and normally what you'll do is you'll put these control bones into, or these widgets into their own collection. So tap M and make a new collection. We'll call it widgets, and we can just turn off, we can hide the widgets so that they're not crowding our monitor. Hope that's helpful. Happy blending.